The deadliest soldier in G.I. Joe had the most tragic ending. After decades of war, it all ended in silence. For anyone who grew up in the 80s, Snake Eyes is unforgettable. He survived every war he ever faced. Helicopter crashes, ninja assassins. For over 30 years, he was the one character who always came back. Until 2015, when Larry Hama finally killed him. But what shocked fans wasn't the death itself. It was the silence that came after, the end of a legend. By 2015, the IDW run of G.I. Joe had been going for years, and Larry Hama, the man who created the comic universe the cartoon was based on, was still writing it. He had brought back Serpentor, the genetically engineered emperor of Cobra, now transformed into something far more dangerous than the cartoon ever allowed. A Serpentor capable of controlling both machines and men with his mind alone. The Joes had taken a calculated risk, activating Serpentor's consciousness to counter a massive weapon deployed by the Red Shadows, a rival terrorist organization. The plan worked, but Serpentor had been waiting for exactly that moment, the moment the Joes needed him, because that was when he was free. How do you stop something that was designed to be unstoppable? He seized control of the pit, the G.I. Joe headquarters buried beneath the Utah desert. He hacked the base's own systems to trigger a launch sequence, splitting the floors apart and sending Joes plummeting into the levels below. Roadblock had been wired into Serpentor as a failsafe, a moral conscience meant to control him, and that failsafe had just failed. Every tactical advantage the Joes had built over 30 years was gone in seconds. 30 years of G.I. Joe history dismantled in seconds. What do you do next? And when the chaos settled, Snake Eyes was standing alone, between Serpentor and every person he had ever fought to protect. Which brings us back to the question, what does the most dangerous man in G.I. Joe do when he is completely alone, facing something that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be intimidated, and cannot be stopped? He attacks. That is what issue 213 shows us. And it is brutal in a way the cartoon was never allowed to be. Snake Eyes moves through the wreckage of the pit, closing in on Serpentor while he is distracted, controlling the giant robot in Oleistan. Serpentor doesn't even see him coming. And when Snake Eyes finally reaches him, what happens next is something Hama had been building toward for years. Serpentor catches him and throws him, then goes straight for Scarlet. That is the moment you understand what Snake Eyes is made of. He climbs back up, not away from the fight, back toward it. He attacks again. Serpentor throws him a second time. Disappointing, he says. And then he does something no Cobra enemy had ever done in 30 years of G.I. Joe comics. He rips off the mask. He wanted to see the face underneath. He expected the grotesque scars that had defined Snake Eyes since the earliest issues of the Marvel run. The helicopter accident, the burns, the disfigurement that had become legend. But there was one problem. Years earlier, Snake Eyes had undergone reconstructive surgery. The scars were gone. On the surface, a man who looked like anyone else. On the inside, the only person Cobra had ever actually feared. Serpentor stared at a completely ordinary face and felt nothing but contempt. He had built up the myth for years and found a man who could have been standing in any crowd. He threw Snake Eyes back at the Joes like he was nothing. And then Duke made a decision. He pulled a grenade and threw it directly at Serpentor. But Serpentor had been anticipating every move. He hurled it straight back toward Duke and the other Joes. A live grenade, spinning through the air toward the people Snake Eyes had spent his entire life protecting. And that's when Snake Eyes made the decision that would define everything that came before it. He caught it, the live grenade. Why would a man who just survived a beating and 30 years of impossible missions choose to end it this way? Because for Snake Eyes, it was never about survival. It was never about invincibility. Serpentor stood there watching, calculating. Then the robot exploded. That explosion was the only distraction Snake Eyes needed. He speared Serpentor like a missile, grenade in hand, and drove him over the edge of the chasm. They fell together. The grenade exploded, and Snake Eyes was gone. If you never knew this story existed, subscribe, because what comes next is the part no G.I. Joe fan was ready to see. In Olistan, Dusty received the report over comms. He started to read it. His smile disappeared. His jaw dropped. He raised his hand to his mouth. He shed a tear. He never said a word. He didn't need to. Issue 214 is not simply a funeral issue. It is one of the most deliberate acts of symmetry in comic book history. Has no dialogue. None. You do it in complete silence. The American flag over the pit hangs at half-staff. An open boot ceremony, the military tradition reserved for fallen soldiers. Snake Eyes boots planted in the earth. His sword staked through the handle. His Uzi hanging from the blade. And then, something unexpected happens. A lone coyote wanders onto the parade ground. It walks up to the boots. It looks around at the hundreds of soldiers standing in silence. Rock and Roll is crying. Stalker falls to his knees, and Duke and Scarlet catch him before he hits the ground. Every vehicle in the G.I. Joe motor pool rolls past in procession. Steeler is crying inside his tank. Cutter and Shipwreck are shedding tears on the deck. The casket of Snake Eyes, draped in the American flag, is carried by Scarlet, Duke, Stalker, Gung Ho, Flash, and Rock and Roll, and loaded onto a C-130 flown by Wild Bill. The aircraft circles the pit one final time. Every pilot in the formation raises a salute. Spirit, the last Joe left above ground, lets the coyote out first. Then he closes the gate and gives one final salute to the sky. The flag rises back to full staff. No words. Just silence. The same silence Snake Eyes carried for 30 years. But what happens to an organization built around one man when that man is gone? But what nobody tells you about the legacy of Snake Eyes is that it had already chosen its successor. Hawk called in Sean Collins, the young Arashikage warrior known as Throwdown. During the battle, Sean had ridden the giant robot back from Olistan through atmospheric re-entry, trapped inside it. His face had burned horribly in the heat. When he cut his way free and fell to the floor of the pit, the first thing he reached for was Snake Eyes' discarded mask. He pressed it against his burning face. He had become Snake Eyes through pain, the same way Snake Eyes had become Snake Eyes. And Hawk told him what that meant. Cobra could not learn that Snake Eyes was dead. The moment they found out, every advantage they held would collapse. Sean Collins would officially die. His own family would attend his funeral at Arlington National Cemetery while Sean watched from a distance. What does it cost to become someone who no longer exists? He wrote his answer because his voice was still gone from the burns. He accepted. Scarlet came in after Hawk left. She placed a sword in Sean's hands. The lesser light, forged by Onihashi, passed from Snake Eyes to the man who would carry his name forward. She stopped him from writing anything else. She just held his hand. In Japan, the Arashikage clan added a new plaque to their shrine. No name was necessary. Everyone who mattered already knew. On the surface, Snake Eyes was a cartoon character who never lost a fight. On the inside, he was a man who had already decided, long before issue 212, that his life mattered less than the people around him. He caught a live grenade so his teammates would not have to. He did not hesitate. He did not look back. He was never invincible because he couldn't die. He was invincible because he was willing to. And when it was over, the only tribute worthy of him was the one Larry Hama already knew how to write. Complete silence. If this video made you see a character you thought you already knew in a whole new light, share it with someone who grew up watching G.I. Joe. And if you want to know the dark origin of another classic character that TV kept hidden from you, subscribe to the channel, because the next video is about a character who seemed harmless, but had a deeply disturbing past. See you then.